Brilliant.
So I should be recording.
Right. Perfect. I'm just going to pop myself on Do Not Disturb, so hopefully you won't hear any beeps from me.
I'm constantly, I don't know if you've seen any of my videos, but I'm constantly going, sorry, I got distracted. So I've kind of done a bit of an intro on my other camera, but hello.
Hi.
Thanks so much for coming on. Can you first of all just do like a bit of an intro
Of course. Yeah, so hello, I'm Elle. I am a yoga teacher and a nutritionist. As of this, or maybe next week, hopefully finally a registered or associate registered nutritionist, because I've just got my application in. Finally. But I talk on the platform Enlivening Elle, which is my website and also my Instagram account. And my particular area of interest is talking about women's health nutrition. So whether that is the day-to-day, life.
I thought my phone was going to fall down and I was like,
No worries. Do you want me to start that bit again?
No, go for it. No, sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
No, not at all. No, there's no problem. So my special interest is in women's health nutrition. So that can be the day-to-day, people just saying, I'm a woman, do I need to know anything different? But then also when people are thinking about pregnancy and maternal nutrition, all the way up to the menopause and beyond. So I think it's really interesting when we have these stages in our lives where we have these different needs, and just to help support women through those.
Definitely. And I don't know about you, but I was this year old when I found out how much we change as women, and like we literally do go, I know everything goes through a cycle, but we really go through like massive cycles of change, and I just can't believe that.
Yeah.
And I can't believe we're not taught that at school. I don't know about you, but I wasn't taught about the menopause in school. I remember my mum going through it. Sorry, mum. I remember my mum going through it and thinking, Christ, she's a nutter.
And no one tells you that.
Yeah, no. And I felt sorry for her, because obviously she wasn't really like, you kind of go through it all. The only person she really had to talk to was her mum, and some people don't even have that. So no. First question. Tell me, I saw it on your Instagram TV, and my listeners will benefit from this. What's the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist?
So, brilliant question. I didn't even know this for quite a while, because there is a lot of overlap. The biggest difference across the globe is that dietetics and being a dietitian is a legally protected title. So it's kind of like saying I'm an accountant. There's legal protection around that. And the reason why is because dietitians have extra training, so they can work with people with acute conditions, and they tend to work, or they're more likely to work in hospital setting. Right. So they need to have that extra training because, for example, you could be a diabetes specialist dietitian, you could be working as an oncology dietitian in cancer wards. So it's really vital that you've done all that extra work, and they do placements in hospitals as part of their training. Nutritionist isn't a protected title, which is a bit unfortunate, because it does mean that you get a lot of online so-called experts who haven't actually got any formal training in nutrition. But part of the reason why it's not protected is because a lot of nutritionists don't work in a people-facing role. You have a lot of nutritionists working in food industry. So you get a lot of people going into supermarkets, for example, or they go into public policy and like research.
Product development, that sort of thing. And
exactly, yeah. Or they can even go into governmental roles looking at food policy. So in that respect, you don't really need the legal protection the same way, because the employer is just going to look for your degree and your work experience. But then where it becomes a little bit tricky is where you've got a nutritionist working with people, because you can do that. Just you need to have the appropriate training, and you're probably not. So I wouldn't be qualified to work with someone with an active eating disorder, or even a recent history of one, because I've not got that training.
Right, okay. Yeah. Anyone under a nutritionist label potentially could. Like there's nothing to actually stop them doing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And the only thing, one thing I do have a protection of is we have in the UK at least, this doesn't necessarily apply to other countries, is that we have a voluntary register called the Association for Nutrition. And to apply for that, you have to have either done an accredited degree, or you have to have done enough work, a maybe unaccredited degree, and then you apply via portfolio.
Right, okay.
And so you start off as an associate registered nutritionist, which is what I will be. And it's essentially saying I'm a nutritionist, but I'm a little baby nutritionist. I'm a bit young and inexperienced. And then after a few years, it's usually at least 3 years of working in nutrition and doing extra training, you can then apply to be a registered nutritionist. And to stay registered, you need to do CPD, so continual professional development, like every single year. So they're quite stringent.
So someone's looking to potentially work with a dietitian or a nutritionist, I guess that's the sort of thing you want to look at, right?
Yeah, so if they're a dietitian, they'll probably have RD after their name. And if they're a registered nutritionist, it'll either say A Nutri or R Nutri, depending on if they're an associate or fully registered. So those are the little things to look out for.
Yeah, that's good to know. Okay, should we go into it? Right. How complicated is female nutrition? Because I don't know about you, but, and I've mentioned it on a previous video recently, when I first started to get into health and fitness, if you like, I had absolutely no idea, and sorry, I've just got distracted by the fact I've only got one ring on. I normally wear about like 8. Sorry, I just got a glimpse of my hands and I was like, ugh. Sorry. But I still think a huge part of the reason why I went down like a disordered eating route was because it is so complicated and there is so much out there that I just kind of was a bit like, okay, well, I'll just try everything. I'll try fasting. I'll try this diet. I'll do this. So how complicated is female dieting? Is female nutrition? And is there a way that we can kind of like simplify it?
The nutrition is very much a rabbit hole, and the more you delve into it, the more complicated it gets. And in many ways, you're actually sticking to a really basic bit of nutrition, you know, like your Eat Well guide, is going to often serve you as well as getting down that rabbit hole and finding all the niche things like, oh, I should be taking this supplement, or I should be trying to eat this food.
Yeah.
And sometimes actually the payoff versus the amount of effort you put in can actually be quite small. So it's one of those things where the further you go, the more complicated it gets. I mean, you could start looking at like menstrual cycles and being like, okay, so I need more food at this time of my cycle. And sometimes it works and sometimes it gets so complicated, you end up being someone who gets stuck down that disordered eating route, because the more you look into it, the more it either gets complicated or it starts conflicting, and it can just make it just too difficult to deal with sometimes.
So my dad is a huge fan of Dr. Greger, is it? So he wrote the How Not to Die book, and the other ones that he's done. My dad's like, I'm so worried he's turned into a bit of a fanboy. But he's recently turned vegan at the same time I did. The reason why I did was I thought, well, if Dad can do it, I can do it. And Dad said the similar, in that there is so much to think about when you start reading into it, that soon you're just going to sit there and just not even breathe. Do you know what I mean? That's because you've got to be breathing right. You've got to be taking this supplement. You've got to be eating this. You've got to be doing this. Oh, you should do this in the morning, do this in the evening. And it's a bit like, So are there any basic things that, as a female, to take away that like rabbit hole and that stress? Do you have any top pillars that you can kind of like look to do as just basic?
Yeah. So the vast majority of your basic nutrition is kind of universal. If you're in the UK, the big thing we say is take vitamin D when you're sort of roughly October through to April, or all year round if you have darker skin, just because even if it's a sunny day in winter, you're not going to get enough UV to get vitamin D through your body, essentially creating its own vitamin D. So that's the one big thing we'd say. There's certain things where you might get a bit more specific. So women are at more risk of osteoporosis. So you might want to be mindful of, are you getting sources of calcium? Are you doing a bit of weight bearing exercise? And actually the interesting thing there is because there's been more people going to a plant-based diet, you know, I tend to have non-dairy milk myself, is that there's saying, oh, make sure that you're getting fortified non-dairy milks, or you're having tofu that's calcium enriched. And so there's things like that. It's just making sure that you're getting sufficient vitamin D, calcium, and weight-bearing exercises, just because women are at more risk of that.
Yes.
The advantage is that until the menopause, you've got a lower risk of heart disease, whilst you've got higher estrogen. That does decrease once you go through the menopause, so then you lose that benefit.
Right, so you have to put up with the period for once a month, and then post-menopause, you're blooming hot.
Yeah, but actually that nicely brings me to iron. So women, if you are essentially having a period, you're losing blood every month, and therefore your iron requirements are higher. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to take an iron supplement, and in fact a lot of people find they can be quite heavy on the stomach. So it's just making sure that you're having the what? Sorry,
that cause constipation.
Can do, or it can even just cause sort of, you know, indigestion. Yeah. Iron's a really funny one though, because so for example, vegetarians and vegans, because they're not having red meat, are more likely to have iron, slightly lower iron stores, but they're not actually more likely to be deficient, because you can be a bit more efficient at actually uptaking iron from your plant-based sources.
Okay.
So even things like, I have pretty much always been told, if you're vegetarian or vegan, take a source of vitamin C with your iron. So that could be having some bell peppers in your savoury food, or some citrus fruit in a sweet food. But actually the interesting, and this is what I've always been told, because it makes the iron in non-heme, so plant-based sources of iron, more bioavailable. But actually some evidence that came out a few years ago is that even though in a laboratory that makes sense, in reality, if our body needs to take up more iron, we're actually doing it anyway. So it's interesting in that something I've always been told, if you're vegetarian, have a glass of orange juice with your cereal, or, you know, have your green smoothies. It's actually maybe not so much, but you've got all these amazing sources of iron, whether that's dark leafy veg. I think some dried fruits have iron, or if you are eating meat, more of your red meats. So it's kind of one of those things where, unfortunately, you can eat all you want, and if your body wants to be a little bit anemic or a little bit lower, that's just what your body makeup is going to be. So sometimes it's just kind of, it's got nothing to do with what you're doing, and it's just what your body's tendency is.
Okay, that's good to know.
But yeah, so I'd say bone health, iron, are the big ones.
Okay, that's good to know. Right, I've forgotten my questions, so we've done the nutrition. So, and obviously we've kind of touched on this. I've had the question of, should we all supplement, especially as females? But I feel like you've kind of answered that. Like the vitamin D, make sure you're doing that in the winter. Yeah. What's your take on the B12 saga?
Yeah, so if you are a vegan, or if you're a vegetarian who doesn't have much by way of dairy or eggs, then it's worth supplement. I mean, if you're vegan, definitely supplement with B12.
And how do you? I know. So, am I right in saying that we get it from meat? But isn't B12 originally found in the ground?
Yeah. So, the way that the animals get it is because microbes in the soil convert it into a usable form, and so that's why there is one theory that's saying just have like muddy organic vegetables. Unfortunately, that's still not going to give you quite enough vitamin B12, especially because, you know, you're not foraging in the wild where it's really rich organic soil.
Yeah.
But yeah, that actually is where it comes originally.
Sorry. And what about because a lot of the meat people eat now is minging really into like, sorry, I mean in how animals are treated, and I'm not here being a preachy vegan about that. If anything, I went vegan over health issues, not necessarily that, but so when I say health issues, I just meant health benefits.
Yeah.
Oh God, I even squirm saying that, because for some people it's healthy. I'll just shut up. But a lot of the food that the animals eat now is just like corn and stuff in like farms, right? So yeah, and a lot of them aren't even eaten from the ground.
I think that's why maybe more so in the US, I'd say, than here, because I think the thing in the UK and in the EU, we've got higher food standards, particularly when it comes to live animals. But I know in the US, where farming is a little bit more industrialized, there has been this, like, you get all the people who are very keen on like their grass-fed beef and things. And so I think, again, because you drive out to the countryside in the UK, chances are you're going to see animals in the field. They're still getting that little bit, but I know that it is often a marketing point to have grass-fed beef or another source of meat. Just because that way, like you say, they're getting more variety. They're getting the grass. They're getting anything else that's growing in there. Some all the goodness that's in the soil. Yeah.
I feel like I've just gone on a vegan tangent, and I'm aware the internet isn't always friendly to vegans. So I'm just going to stir it back to females. So a plate for a female then, how should our daily eating look for and I'm aware it's very different for a lot of people, but is there anything that we can do, again, going back to the basics of like, what should a female be eating in a day, sort of thing? I've got the needles, sorry.
No worries. Well, the good thing to note is that there is no one right diet. There are so many different ways to eat a well-balanced, nourishing diet. I mean, all you need to do is just look at, different cultures across the world and see, some people have a very fish-based diet, some people have a very plant-based diet, and they're, even within the blue zones where people live the longest, there's a lot of variation. And to be honest, they think that a lot of the reason people in blue zones live so long is more to do with actually how happy they are and the fact that they're active. So it's good to know that there is actually no one perfect diet, and it is fairly boring, but the sort of Eat Well guides that you can get. So the UK, we've got the Eat Well guide, formerly the Eat Well plates. Other countries use like food pyramids, and there is actually a vegetarian and vegan one. You have to Google it. It's a bit hard to find, but if you just type in vegan Eat Well guide, that comes up, which is really helpful. The only thing I find with that is I know, because I don't eat a meat and two veg type diet, you don't really have that nice portioning of your meals. So if you're having, say, like a veggie stew or a curry, it's like, well, how am I supposed to work out if I've got those sort of proportions or not? So, I mean, the main things are variety, getting, all your different fruits and veg in. And one thing I quite like is kind of not just saying fruit and veg, but thinking like, okay, have I had some leafy veg? Have I had a bit of cruciferous veg? And it doesn't matter if I'm not doing those every single day, because it's over the course of weeks and months that is important. Mm-hmm. So yeah, variety of veg, maybe, thinking about different types. I think whilst it's very rare for anyone to be protein insufficient, if you're having, say, that kind of traditional British meal of like toast for breakfast, sandwich for lunch, and then a nice cooked dinner, and it just might mean that maybe you want to just have that extra little protein source in one of your other meals, say like 2 meals out of 3, just so that you're dosing throughout the day. So there's little things like that. Okay. And I think the other thing that, obviously there are so many components to a good diet, whole grains, legumes, your beans and pulses, variety of fruit and veg, protein sources, which even if you're a meat eater, there's a lot of evidence saying that plant-based sources of protein have got loads of good evidence behind them for longevity and sustained health. So that's your beans again, your tofu, your nuts and seeds. But also omega-3s, that's something that we maybe don't have so much in the UK, I think, because we're less of a fish-eating nation. So if you eat fish, having, maybe a couple of servings of fish a week, one of those being oily. If you're veggie or vegan, then you've got your flax seeds and things, and then considering maybe having an algal-based supplement, just because there's a type of omega-3 that you don't really get in the plant-based sources, but you can get from algae supplements.
Okay.
So that's one thing. I think it's one of those semi-optional supplements, shall we say, in that most of us probably aren't getting quite enough. We can get them from food sources, but it's a convenient one to supplement if that's something you want to add in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on to the big one. What about how we should eat around our cycle? And I know this is something close to your heart as well. So yeah, can you talk us through how we should be eating? I don't know if you saw, but I did a post, or as a personal trainer, I did a post around how we should train around around our period. So it would be great to get your perspective on what should we be eating around our period in kind of like the basic way possible, because that, as we said, it can get blimming complicated. You end up going, I can't eat that seed because I'm in this phase of my cycle.
Well, I have an interesting thing. So it's seed cycling. That was something, I think it was one of the first things I heard about before I even did my nutrition degree. I'd just done my yoga teacher training, and we had these beautiful breakfast spreads with like bowls of different nuts and seeds every day, and had someone say, oh, you should try seed cycling, it's great. Done a lot of research into it since then, both pre and post degree, and actually there's not that much research for it. So it's a brilliant theory, because it's essentially, you know, it's talking about the different compounds that are in things like your flax seeds versus I think it was your chia and sunflower seeds as well. I've actually forgotten which order it goes in now.
I can't remember either.
Yeah, I can't remember the order, but it's a brilliant, it's a great theory, but in practice there's not really any evidence for it.
Yeah,
so if you want to do it, no harm.
Yeah, I kind of had a bit of a theory, is it especially when it comes to HA, right, and like a healthy cycle, I kind of had this theory of, is it just another way of trying to get a quick fix? So do you know what I mean? Like, is it just another kind of fad, if you like, but instead of a dieting fad, it was a get your period back kind of fad? Because I've had some girls message me and say, like, seed cycling, did you try it? Did you recommend it? And I'm like, no, I can't be dealing with that. I don't want to wake up and think, Christ, I've eaten the wrong seed today.
I mean, it's a good way of getting variety into your diet, because, you know, I think they generally list 4 types of seeds, 2 to have in the early part of your cycle, 2 to have afterwards. So it's a great way of getting different varieties in. So in that respect, fine. There's absolutely no harm in it. But just the relative amounts of those compounds just aren't enough to make a difference, really. So it's a nice idea. And if it works for you, it doesn't hurt. If what fits into your lifestyle and it's not too complicated, go for it. But don't expect it to be a magical sort of, you know, a source. Oh, I don't like the term balancing hormones, because it's doesn't really make sense. Like, going what direction, which hormones? But
at what stage are you at?
Yeah, like it's not going to magically turn your hormones into this perfectly cycling machine, but at the same time, it's not going to hurt if you really want to do it. I personally just say, listen to your body, because you might be someone who, say, after your period, you really want to have like slightly higher fat foods. You know, you might feel like you want all the coconut yogurt and almond butter in the world, and then chances are, the closer you get to your period, the more you're going to want carbohydrates and comforting food. And so long as it's not, you know, sending you from one extreme to the other, to the point that you're, you know, maybe you're comfort eating to feel uncomfortable. The irony there, comfort eating until you feel bloated and things. But, you know, firstly, it's fine to have a bit of comfort from food, but secondly, you know, your body kind of wants that bit of extra energy. So if that's where your hunger takes you, then go with it. But don't overly worry about being like, okay, I need to have high fat because my estrogen levels are increasing whilst I get up to my fertility point, and okay, now that I'm getting close to my period, I should have more carbohydrates. I mean, like, you might want to have more of those slow release carbohydrates. If you don't worry.
Okay, so a lot of the people that watch my videos and are on my Instagram, a lot of us have suffered from hypothalamic amenorrhea. And how I would kind of describe that is a huge disconnect from what your body needs and requires, and to what you're giving it. And also a lot of the time what you feel you need. I feel like you've got what you feel you need and what your body actually needs. And for the people that have kind of been on the same journey as me, we've had this like disconnect. So when you say listen to your body, a lot of the time, like,
people can't, and like
Yeah.
they actually don't know when they're hungry, they don't know how much they need. So for someone that isn't quite as in tune with their body, maybe is there like a blanket thing that of things that we can eat around our cycles, to say starting at day one of our period and then take us through the cycle? Is there different foods that we should be focusing on at different points?
So I mean, if you are getting completely lost, or if you have got HA, it very much might be worth talking to a dietitian or registered nutritionist, just because they can kind of, even if it's just have a one-off session, if you don't want to see someone long term, they can just kind of, you know, they'll maybe ask you to do a food diary just to see how many calories you're eating, or see what your exercise levels are like, and then they can kind of just give you some suggestions from there. So if that is something that's in your budget, it is something that's worth considering. But to be honest, if you are someone who is reconnecting with what your sort of body wants, because obviously saying this is your body is very annoying if you don't have that communication there. But in that case, I'd almost say don't worry about changing your diet. I'd say just focus on getting a varied diet, getting enough calories in, you know, getting those slow release carbohydrates in, so they're keeping you fueled, they're giving you that fiber, and just stick with the basics. Okay. And then that, because also then you're having a nice consistent diet, and that's going to help your body get used to understanding hunger and fullness cues, and slowly you'll be able to reconnect with, oh, if I have let's say a bowl of porridge for breakfast today, that felt really filling and really good, whereas yesterday I had I don't know, let's say an omelette for breakfast, and it was delicious, but I had to have a mid-morning snack. And so if you're having that consistency, you'll slowly actually be able to notice what your body wants.
I think it does come down to that awareness, doesn't it, of like, it's absolutely fine if you don't know what your body's saying to you now, but now is also the perfect time that you can start exploring what your body is saying. So like becoming aware, like I very much know if I have sweets, I get a pounding headache and I'll have to have a nap in about half an hour. Whereas chocolate, vegan chocolate, well, you can give me that till the cows come home. So yeah, and it's just, I completely agree. I actually had an interesting one where I was eating oats in the morning and it just made me really sleepy. I stuck with it, and now they make me feel great. I often think, like, don't write foods off either, like give them an opportunity to come in. So for someone maybe just with really bad PMS, so some people they've got their cycles back, they're really regular, but they might have like quite bad PMS. Is there anything we can do around nutrition to help that?
So it depends on what the PMS is and why you're getting it. And so it's a little bit hard to just sort of be able to judge it from there. Some of it will be just things like having things that say your PMS is physical, so like you're getting early cramps and things. It might be just having those herbal teas. I wouldn't really be able to put recommendations if someone has more sort of emotional PMS. I mean, if they are severe, then definitely talk to your doctor, and they'll hopefully be able to send you forwards to an endocrinologist or gynecologist or even dietitian, just because then if there is an underlying cause there, they might be able to support you with that. But yeah, just because so many varied PMS symptoms, it can vary a bit. If what you need is just to have that quiet moment, or to have that extra bit of chocolate, or to have, you know, maybe a ginger tea if you're feeling a little bit queasy, you know, it's sometimes it's just those little comfort things.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, this is one I haven't actually, I didn't add on to the questions, but is there any particular nutrition things, with you focusing into female health and our cycles and stuff, is there any particular nutrition information, or even if it's just scientific information, that you would love every woman to know?
Oh my gosh, there are so many. I mean, big ones I'd go, I mean, I think hopefully people are starting to get over these now, but anything to do with cleansing, detox, alkaline, just no, it's things like that, where it's kind of implying that you're, or like, I mean, I don't think anyone really uses this term anymore, or the clean eating things. It's anything to do with food purity, or even like food, I suppose you could say hierarchy or superiority. Because have you ever noticed whenever there is like a trending ingredient or food to have, it's never a cheap one. It's never ever.
Avocados.
Yeah.
Rice.
Powders, fancy exotic seeds.
Yeah.
So I think my big one would just be that you don't need to kind of purify your body, and you don't need to be spending loads and loads and loads of money unless you just really, really, really love that particular flavor of that powder, or it works for you. Just simplify.
Yeah, spend the money on something that'll make you feel great, like, I don't know, like a massage or something like that, eh?
Oh, yes, please. I think we all need one after this year.
Yeah, like some of us girls that will be watching this as well, we've probably been there, done it, or potentially might be in that kind of like just coming out the end of it, sort of, or maybe even still in it. So I think it's great to hear you say, as a professional, like, stop trying to cleanse your body.
Yeah, honestly, we have organs that do that, and if you were to completely detoxify your body, you'd probably have to live on a desert island in the middle of the Pacific for 5 years, and you'd probably still get some weird trace elements because it's the sea. If it goes in the sea, it can get everywhere. So you're not gonna magically remove these so-called toxins out of your body just by having juice or lemon water in the morning.
So cleanse, is there anything else that you'd love us to know?
Trying to think if there's anything women's health specific. I mean, God, it's so cheesy, but just eat enough. I think especially if you going back to the HA, if you are someone with amenorrhea, you might have got used to not having a lot of food, and you might not necessarily feel hungry, but you might have to be like, actually, do you know what? Looking at what I've had today, I need to have a little snack, or I need to have a bowl of something after dinner, even if you're not necessarily feeling hungry. I mean, obviously don't eat past fullness, but you might need to reteach your body.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. What's your views on tracking your food when it comes to that? Then? Because I, for one, am someone that naturally will undereat. I walk a lot because I tend to do some. First thing in the morning, I'll do like my Instagram posts on a walk. I'll prep some YouTube videos, that sort of thing, and I always do that on a walk. And to me, that's just walking, and I forget how much walking burns so many calories. And then I'll come and I'll just eat anything, and then I'm surprised when I haven't got my period that month. and I look back, and sometimes I might download the MyFitnessPal app and put in maybe like a couple of days of last week's food, and I'm like, okay, that's quite little. How do you, what are your views on it? How do people make sure, if they aren't hungry and maybe they're not aware of how many calories or how much energy is in food, what's your views on that? How do you suggest that?
Yeah, so I think the way you're doing it is brilliant. So in general, I'd because I'm more of a non-diet nutritionist, so I prefer not to have the focus on weight loss or calorie counting. But like you say, if you are potentially undereating, you need to know that you're undereating. So I think if you are someone who is really needing support, then you might have a nutritionist or dietitian say, well, let's do a food diary for a bit, and then we can actually analyze it together and work together. If it's you on your own, I think what you've done there about just saying, just occasionally you pop a few days worth of meals into MyFitnessPal, I think that's a really good way of just being able to check in with your diet without making it complicated, and without having, because tracking takes time. Like when you have to put in the grams and all the ingredients onto MyFitnessPal, it takes up a big chunk of your day.
It's really like, I kind of want to say degrading.
Yeah, because the thing is, even if you're kind of gain weight, it's probably going to tell you like, you need to be not eating so much.
Yeah, I think it's really, I'm always so on the fence with it, because don't get me wrong, when I was a serial dieter, I learned about tracking, and it put me up to an amount of calories that was better for me than what I definitely was eating. I was eating under 1,000 a day, and I'm more like literally doubled that. But then my body adapted to that, and I increased my exercise because I had the more energy. So then I needed more than that, but I didn't bring the calories up. I stayed on them, because then I became in that mindset of I cannot eat over that and I cannot eat under that. So then I went down that rabbit hole. But then I'm also like, I'm so grateful, because now I know how much are in foods. So I'm not going to a restaurant and eating blind. I'm not cooking up a meal and cooking up sometimes I see my stepdad. He knows what he's like. I have to go down. Me and my best friend Zoe, who work for my parents, have to go down and save him for his lunches sometimes. But he'll rock up with a chicken salad, and I'm not joking, a handful of leaves and a chicken breast. And we're like, Mark, like you can't just have that for lunch. Like, so I'm so grateful that tracking from that side of things. But then it becomes so obsessive. And so if you are in that kind of like disordered eating route, I don't think it's great. But then how are you ever meant to know if you're eating enough? Because No Period Now What book suggests like 2,500 calories. So it's just like a huge... What's your view on how much women should eat?
It depends on who you are. I mean, one thing I would say is 1,200 calories is the nutritional requirement for a toddler.
And so, a lot of diets suggest women should eat, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, obviously I get if you're someone who is, you know, maybe in a sport where you've got weight categories, then yes, you might, you know, dieting down might be part of your program, but that is a very small amount of people. And you know what you said there about your body adapting to higher calories intake, the less food you eat, the slower your metabolism is going to go, and it's not necessarily going to pick itself back up to its original point. Like when you massively restrict your calories, or likewise if you go the other way and you have more problems with management, and then you maybe lose weight, or you're a cycling dietist, you're always gaining and losing weight, all of that slows down your metabolism, which means you just have less food that you can eat. So, you know, if you're eating food, the one way I heard it described was stoking a fire, which I love. You know, eat the food and your body knows to expect that much food, and it will use that much food up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And
the exact amount will vary between people though.
And am I right in that it doesn't go into starvation mode, if you like, but all it does is say you're going on a diet and you're eating 1,800 calories, which is actually potentially for some people quite a sustainable diet if you're doing it for a short amount of time, right? It's still very low calories for women.
Yeah.
But say you're on that. I've forgotten where I was going with this. Right. Yeah. 1,000 calories. You will lose weight if you've been eating it more than that, because you're providing it with a energy deficit. But eventually your body will just adapt to that, because that's what it's used to, right?
Yeah.
So then when someone reaches that low calories and they haven't reached their goal weight, they then reduce a little bit more, then they reduce a little bit more. And that's why we find these women at 1,200 calories completely miserable, that like more or less like depressed, with gut health problems, skin problems, mood problems, fertility problems, and they can't lose weight. So when someone wants to increase their weight, they want to kind of solve their problems, but they're scared of gaining weight. This whole thing about being scared to lose weight, can you kind of explain a little bit more about that fire thing that you put, of like how your body, if you just slowly increase your calories, you're not necessarily going to wake up one day and be completely overweight and like morbidly obese. What will happen is your body will potentially just adapt to those calories, so your weight will just kind of maintain. Have I got that right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, say if someone's really gone to the extreme of, you know, long-term chronic dieting, then it might be that it takes longer for things to sort themselves out. Again, that might be where you go to see a specialist dietitian or nutritionist. But yeah, with both gaining and losing weight, slow and steady is the way to give your body time to adapt to it. You know, you might be quite tired because of eating so few calories. You might, you know, this probably isn't the time to start up a HIIT exercise regime potentially, if, you know, if you're already stressed out. But it might be that you do some low intensity weight-based exercises. So you are, as you're eating, your body's getting used to moving again. Might get a bit of muscle growth with that might help. But it's, yeah, just taking your time, you know. And this is why we always recommend, sort of, if weight loss is your goal, do it slowly. Think about overall lifestyle changes rather than drastic diets, because it's those rapid changes in your diet, those rapid changes in your body weight, whether that's up or down, that's going to put more stress onto your system, because your body's essentially thinking like, oh my goodness, I've just been in a famine, or it's just a feast, I better put on all the sort of weight that I can because there might be a famine coming. So it's kind of give your body time, really. It's slow and steady.
Yeah, no, that's great, thank you. Okay, final one. Is there, I know I haven't prepped you for it, but is there any last one, is there anything else that you would like women to know about what they should be eating?
Give yourself a bit of freedom is so cliche, but it's something I think if you give yourself that bit of food freedom, then it just kind of puts everything onto a level playing field. You know, if you, let's say your favorite treat in the world is, I don't know, a very specific chocolate button or something, and or Ben and Jerry's, that's probably a good example actually. And if you I mean, fair enough, if you just enjoy eating the whole tub, you might be like, you know what, I won't have it all the time because I know I just want to eat the whole tub. But at the same time, if you put it on a pedestal, you're increasing that food's power over you, so that when you do come to it, you're going to feel more out of control around it. It might be a food you're like, I can't have it in the house because I'll just eat it all in one go. Whereas if you just allow food to be neutral, put that ice cream on the same field, the same sort of relative good versus bad as broccoli, then it's something that's always available. And if you reduce that power, and you can have enough to be satisfied without feeling like I have to eat it all now because I'm not going to have it again, so I need to have as much as possible now. So yeah, I think that would be my big take, is actually just allowing food to be neutral.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think the mindset around food and how you talk about food as well, because there is how you talk to yourself will be represented in the food that you eat. So if you say to yourself, I don't eat that, compared to I can't eat that, if you say I can't eat something, you have taken all power away from yourself completely, and the power is in the food or the rule that you've given it. So I can't eat chocolate suggests that that's deprived from you. And I don't know about anyone else, but when someone says don't do something and you can't do it, you're going to want to do it even more. That's where I found, and I know that a lot of the girls I talk to about HA and stuff, when there is that battle of when all you've ever known is exercise and diet, and someone says to you, you can't do HIIT, you're like, oh my god, all I want to do is HIIT. Whereas if you change it to be like, actually I don't do that anymore because it might be to do with my health. So for example, the HIIT example would be, I don't do HIIT because I'm getting my period back, or I'm making myself stable, or I don't eat the Ben and Jerry's every single day, or I don't eat the Ben and Jerry's in one go in the house and I can keep it in the house. Suddenly you've decided that, and you've got that power, and it is about taking back the power of foods and sacking off the magazines that say,
God, yes.
like you can't eat that, or bloody talking about such and such's weight, which pisses me off. But yeah, I love that whole, like, just be neutral about food.
Yeah.
So, but thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you and work with you?
So I'm Leeds based, but as we have all become digital people, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can work with me. My website is enliveningowl.com, and so you can book in for nutrition or yoga sessions with me there. Hopefully workshops will be allowed to start happening again. Or if you just want to follow me on a day-to-day basis, Enlivening Owl is my Instagram handle as well.
Yeah, and I love your Instagram, absolutely.
You.
I really hope workshops come back. I'd love to come up to Leeds. I've never been to Leeds.
Oh, it's nice to see.
Oh, I've just lied. I went to an event in Leeds and it was freezing and rain. But I didn't see any of Leeds. I was just at a work event. So yeah,
no, really nice city.
I'm first on the list for that workshop when we're allowed back up.
yeah. No, it's this time last year I was doing, well, not this time last year, but start of this year I was doing like New Year, same awesome me, like yoga and nutrition events. So I'd love to be able to start doing those combined events again.
Oh my God.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I'm so keen. Well, thank you so much, and I'll speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.
Okay, right. How do I stop this? Stop.